Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here. And premium ships. Premium ships are pretty cool, right? Their improved economy makes them great for grinding out credits and training up commanders, and they are quite fun. At least, that's what a good premium ship should be, in my opinion. Quite useful to you, and also quite enjoyable. Now, premium ships are obviously called premium ships because you have to pay money for them, either in the forms of doubloons or outright cash. Now, these ships are quite expensive if you've never taken a look at them in the premium shop. A tier 8 will run you about $50, a tier 9 will run you about $80, then a tier 10 will run you about $130, at least here in the United States. So, yeah, that's literally, in the case of the Tier 8, about the price of a AAA game. Tier 9 is more than what a AAA game costs nowadays with the Tier 10. You can buy 2 or 3 AAA games. Sometimes a hell of a lot more if you catch them on sale at the right time. So, obviously, these are quite expensive ships to buy. So, if you are your average Joe, you probably don't have a whole lot of money to throw at the game to buy, every single new premium that comes out. So, we're answering today the question, if I could only buy one premium ship in-game, what would it be? Now, I do this video every year because obviously Wargaming releases a whole slew of premiums throughout the year, and of course the game changes from year to year with, we've seen reworks and big changes to certain mechanics, in the game's lifetime, right? But this year I'm taking a little bit of a different approach to this question. I'm looking at it from the point of view of I am going to drop, the price of a tier whatever premium ship on this game. What am I going to buy? I am going to spend cash. So because of that, I'm not going to be suggesting a coal ship, because coal ships are acquired for free. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't get a coal ship. You absolutely should. Many of the coal ships in game are quite excellent, and I would highly recommend them. But just for the purposes of this video, we're looking at it from the point of view of someone that, they are going to spend money on the game. So obviously you don't want to buy a ship you can get for free in the armory. So that's my logic going forward. So what would be the one premium ship I would buy in game if I could only buy one? Well, it's one you've been looking at in the background now for about the last 2.5 minutes. It is the Tier 9 Premium French battleship, the Jean Bart, which is, in my opinion, one of the single best premium ships that Wargaming has ever released into this game. I'll get to that here in a moment. But what is an Jean Bart? Well, the Jean Bart is the Tier 8 Tech Line French battleship, the Richelieu, up-tiered to Tier 9 and supercharged. She was actually her sister ship in real life, wasn't finished during the war. She got in a brief little argument, shall we say, with the Massachusetts, but that was about it for the action that she saw during the war. And what we see here in-game is the post-war finished Jean Bart. The Richelieu is the, World War II variant of the class, which again, Richelieu was a real steel ship, as was the Jean Bart. But this is the post-war modernized Jean Bart. Very cool that that's, what they chose to do with the Jean Bart in game. But as far as the game's concerned, what's the difference between the Jean Bart and the Richelieu? Why is the Jean Bart so good and the Richelieu so okay? So the Jean Bart, they both have the same main battery guns. They have 2 turrets with 4 guns per turret of 15 inches, which is, you might be thinking, that's a pretty small caliber at Tier 9. It sure is, but we'll get to why that's not a huge issue here in a moment. With the French AP, the French AP is very nice, it's very punchy, it loves seeing thick targets like German battleships and any large and in charge type of ship, right? It loves biting into that armor. It's a very, very nice AP. And plus, the shells come absolutely screaming out of the guns at 830 meters a second. Quite fast, which makes it fairly easy to aim with these guns at longer ranges, which is very nice. But on top of that, you also get the HE with a fire chance of 36% per shell. Pretty good when you're swinging 8 shells at the target. And here's where some of the big differences come in between the two ships. So far, the AP and the HE is exactly the same. But the guns, that's where the difference comes. So the guns on the Jean Bart have a reload time of 26 seconds instead of the 30 seconds that the Richelieu gets. That's pretty dang good. And the guns on the Jean Bart have a sigma of 1.9, where on the Richelieu they have a sigma of 1.8. Now you might be thinking, Sealord, is that really that big of a difference? Oh yeah, it is. It is when it comes to battleships. You see, sigma is the part of the equation that determines how the shells are going to leave your guns. Basically, it's the thing that determines how tight your group are. Your group's going to be, if you will. Dispersion is the maximum distance that your shells can move around within the group. Sigma is the thing that determines how tight those shells are going to be once they leave your barrels. So that's a TLDR description of it. Wargaming has a whole series on how all that works if you want to do a deep dive into it. So you have a better chance of getting better dispersion or better salvos, I should say, tighter salvos with the Jean Bart than you do with the Richelieu. And you have a 26-second reload versus a 30-second reload. Plus, the Jean Bart is a Tier 9 battleship, which gives you access to that final mod slot, so you can fit the reload module on the Jean Bart, which gives you a 22-second reload on those 8 15-inch guns at Tier 9. So that right there gives you a pretty comfy set of guns. You have excellent French AP for things that are silly and show you broadside. And when you are unable to punish broadsides, you have your HE to fall back on. 36% fire chance per shell with 8 shells leaving the tubes every 26 seconds. So you have a pretty solid fire chance there with an excellent reload time. Even better if you take the reload module, right? So if something does realize, oh, this is Jean Bart, I'm just going to go bow into it, you're going to go, LOL, I don't care. You're going to click 1 and you're going to burn him to the ground. Because every 22 seconds, if you take the reload module, you have 8 15-inch shells with a 36% fire chance base before you throw any flags or anything on the ship coming at him, and he's going to have a very bad time very fast. Fire doesn't really care about tier once it's set. You're going to burn for a certain percentage, if you're a super ship, if you're a tier 10 ship, if you're a tier 9 ship, all the way down to whatever, right? It doesn't matter what tier you are. It doesn't matter what class you are. Everything burns. Now, how long it burns obviously comes down to the class and stuff, but what I'm saying is, yeah, the 15-inch guns don't have a whole lot of overmatching capability at tier 9 and tier 10 and against super ships, but it can still set them on fire, right? It'll work. Trust me, it'll work just fine. And again, you're sending the salvo out every 22 seconds. Now, what makes this even better is the fact that Wargaming gave the Jean Bart the reload booster consumable, where once you push the magic button, your guns now reload in half the time. So, again, if you have the reload module equipped, you have a 22-second reload. Well, if you push the magic button, you now have an 11-second reload for 30 seconds. So if you time it right, you can get 3 quick salvos off back to back to back, which is absolutely devastating. That's math is so hard. That's what, 24 shells coming at the target in 30 seconds. That's a very bad day for whoever's on the receiving end of those shells. And it could be, 24 AP shells, 24 HE shells, depends on the situation. If you're, fighting a bow-in battleship and they pop damage con and it's run its course, absolutely get HE in your tubes. Pop the pop the reload booster, and then get a couple more salvos at them. And you'll probably set 2 or 3 fires on the enemy ship if they've already burned their damage con. And guess what? They burned their damage con. They're now going to burn for the full duration of those fires, which will be a very, very bad time for them. Also with HE, if there's a destroyer that pops up, you have some fast shells with a good air drag coefficient. So by all means, pop your reload booster and absolutely murder that destroyer with your 24 HE shells. They're going to have a bad time if the shells land. Someone sells out broadside in front of you, get your AP in the tubes, fire, pop your reload booster, get a couple of quick follow-up salvos on their broadside. They are going to have a very, very bad time. These guns and the reload booster make Jean Bart an excellent flanking battleship. If you can run down the sides of the enemy team, go a little bit wide, find their sides, get in a good position, and start throwing your 15-inch French AP in their broadsides, yeah, they're going to have an absolutely terrible, terrible day. Now, it's not all great with the Jean Bart, right? Because the ship is balanced pretty well by the fact that, well, it is a tier 8 battleship at tier 9. You don't get any health buffs at all. You have tier 8 battleship health at tier 9, and your armor is pretty much the same as the Richelieu, right? So you're still coated in 32 millimeters of armor, which is pretty typical for all French battleships, and you have tier 8 battleship HP. So yeah, it's not the best ship to go to the front lines in the opening minutes of the game and try to, tank the enemy team and aggressively push into them head on in the first few minutes. You definitely don't want to do that. Don't get me wrong, the Jean Bart is actually quite good at mid-range combat. It's really good at it. If, you're facing, a handful of ships, right, and not the entirety of the enemy team, and you definitely don't want to be the only friendly ship pushed up that close, because if the enemy team decides that, you're the one that they're going to focus down now, yeah, you are going to have a very bad time. Ideally, too, you want to be running around with the Jean Bart as much as possible. I know the main battery guns are all in the front of the superstructure, which might lead you to believe, this is like a tank destroyer in World of Tanks or War Thunder, right? I just stick my bow toward the enemy team, tank for days, and that's it. No. No. Again, you have tier 8 HP, you have 32 millimeters of armor everywhere, everything at tier 9 and above. They're trying to get all their HE guns to penetrate 32 millimeters of armor at that tier, so you don't want to do that. I'm not saying you can't. Again, like if you're 1v1ing another battleship, and it's just you two duking it out, that's a different story. But you shouldn't be trying to sit bow in and tank for the entire match up against the enemy team. You're going to have a terrible time, right? You should be moving around, using the ship's maneuverability to your advantage. You do get an engine boost as well with the Jean Bart, but she's actually slower than the Richelieu. But you still have an engine boost, right? So feel free to use it to get into position or to, just be a little more maneuverable at moments. Like the situation that I'm in the first match that you should be almost done watching in the background, right? We've pushed up. We've pushed up pretty close to the enemy team. There's a couple of ships in, like 15-ish kilometers in. So I pop my engine boost. I use it to help me, maneuver around the island that I'm using to block my side from the rest of the enemy team, right? It's great for stuff like that. Or again, too, if you see an opening in the enemy team's lines, an opportunity to get on their side, you pop it, you run down a flank, and you'd start dumping your AP into the sides of the enemy ships. Now, the Jean Bart did get a buff here pretty recently. They finally increased her ASW range to 10 kilometers, so now she can do something against the enemy submarines. She was stuck at 5 kilometers for the longest time because it was a balancing thing for wargaming, I guess, but she has her full ASW range against submarines now, so that is quite good. She's a pretty decent ship to deal subs, too, because you have the engine boost to help you, maneuver, either outrun or maneuver around the torpedoes, right? Very useful for that. And again, if you catch a submarine on the surface, get HE in the tubes, fire, pop the reload booster, and unless he, crash dives right away, there's a very good chance you're going to nuke him with those 3 salvos of HE you just sent his way, right? So again, great ship for dealing with submarines from that aspect at least, and of course having her full ASW range now at the time of recording. Her secondaries are a little bit different from the Richelieus as well. You have 24 of the 100mm secondary guns, rather than just having the having just 12 of the 100mm guns. So you have double the secondary guns of the Richelieu. You can secondary build into it. Some players swear up and down by it, but the 100mm guns, they barely pin anything. Yeah, there's a lot of them. Yeah, they have a pretty decent reload time. I would just focus on building into the main battery guns with the Jean Bart and, getting the dispersion module and the reload module for the main battery guns, because you have a really sweet set of guns here on the Jean Bart. The dispersion can be fairly frustrating from time to time, but the improved Sigma does definitely help out with it. Now, Jean Bart. She's not available year-round. She only comes back during the Black Friday event, where you can buy her outright for cash. So, yeah, I'm kind of bending the rules here, but I believe she's well worth the wait. She's a tier 9 ship, she has a tier 9 premium economy, and with her main battery guns, you really won't have too much of a problem getting a good, consistent amount of damage coming in each match, which of course will reward you with a nice set of credits by the end of the game. Usually, I mean, with the background matches that have been playing for you guys in this video, they're fairly decent games, and again, we're like right under 1,000,000 credits per match. I believe I'm only running blue economic bonuses, not blue, green economic bonuses on the Jean Bar and the background matches. I'll correct myself here on screen if that is false. So yeah, like right under 1,000,000 credits per match, doing like, you know, upper hundreds. I think I did like a little bit over 200,000 damage in the first game, which was a loss. So it's a good credit printer, and the French tech tree, there's tons of French ships in game now, so you can use the Jean Bar quite easily as an excellent trainer for your French commanders. So it's a great premium all the way around, in my opinion. It's really nice for ranked. I've used Jean Bar when I'm not using my Palmer to get through ranked. I'm usually using Jean Bar because of that reload booster. You know, you want to murder the DDs in ranked even more so than you normally want to in random battles. It's great for that. And again, I mean, especially in, you know, small format, a mid-range combat, Jean Bar excels again with the reload booster and those French 15-inch guns. So all the way around, an amazing ship, worth the wait to pick her up during the Black Friday event in November, in my opinion. And if you are going to spend money on the game, you know, Jean Bar is definitely where I would spend it, in my humble opinion. So guys, that is my one ship to rule them all for this year, the Jean Bar. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. What is your one ship to rule them all if you only could buy one premium ship in game? Hope you guys enjoyed. Have a wonderful Wednesday and wonderful rest of your week. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.